Hi, so I'm ready to go into the deep desert. The new week has just started, and I thought I'd show you how I scout for the location that I decide to settle on. And before we go, just very quickly, I prepare a scout. I usually go in there with a scout, and I have the building materials, the main materials to just throw up the base alone, and nothing else really. A whole bunch of water that I can then throw into a water container as soon as that is built. The Solido replicator, change of clothes. Once I'm there, I might want to go into a testing station or anything. I do the aero typically every week. And a still tent just in case. To be honest, I have almost never used it, but I'd rather have it with me on the first flight. So I'm ready to go, and I'll show you how I decide where I'm going to try and settle. Okay, so when I'm looking where to settle for the next deep desert cycle, this is one of the maps that I tend to have a look at. It's the method.gg website, and I really like it because it's nice and easy to use. It's quite clean. It's not super cluttered like a couple of the others. They have more detailed information, but this has all I need. I really want to know where, more or less within one of these sections, something is located, but not the exact location of every single node. So this is, for me, is perfect. And one of the main things that I'm looking at is, of course, where are the spice fields. So for this week, we have more of them towards the east, and then one over here. I'm also interested, of course, in the main resources. And it seems like there isn't actually all that much this week. So again, it's fairly evenly spread, sort of maybe more towards the east. But what's really skewed this week I can see is the shipwrecks. They're all on the eastern side, and the testing stations are more on the western side. And then we have one loot cave each, one here, and it tells you what is in it, which I find really useful. So if you're looking for a specific thing, all of these actually tell you what you can find and what to expect. So that's really, really useful. So you can then decide what you want. So for example, in this case, if you wanted that Rattler Boost module, this is the place to go to, because you're almost guaranteed to get it. If you go twice, I'm sure you'll find it. Okay, so based on this, I haven't been in the deep desert this week yet. I'll go and do that in a little bit. I'm probably going to look at either somewhere here in the middle or more slightly off towards the eastern side. And in order to have some kind of an idea of what's feasible, what's likely, I use another map that is going to show me a rough idea, at least, of what the islands look like. Okay, so after having had a look at roughly where I would like to be positioned in terms of the map, I then tend to come to this map, which is from the Dune Awakening database, and have a look at where the islands are, how big they are, and so on. So I can see that in the middle, where I tend to normally like to go so I can get anywhere, there is really only a really large island and then a cluster of smaller islands here. So that doesn't really seem great. There's a big gap with almost nothing here, and then some really far over to the western side. So that's not really ideal. I don't want to be that far over to one side. So when I'm scouting, I'll probably be looking at this cluster here, if possible, and maybe this island here as well. So we'll be slightly over towards the east, a bit more skewed towards the east this week. That's the most likely place. So after that, it's time to pack the scout and to actually have a look. So since we're thinking about the eastern side this week, let's take this entrance here. Try and find that bigger island that we saw on the map before and actually check it out. What I'm particularly looking at is, are there any control points that might turn it into PvP? It didn't look like it, but I have seen that that has been an issue. Sometimes there are no build zones because of caves or because of testing stations. Anything like that can throw a spanner in the works. So often I tend to have a little bit of a closer look in person. And that is why I'd like to do a scout flight. Yeah, so they do seem to be the islands that we were looking for. They're in the sort of DE area. They definitely look big enough. It's just a question over whether they are in the position that I want and whether there's any build restriction. Well, okay, so I can already see this is not going to work because this is actually where we have the testing station. The testing stations typically have the entire island blocked off. Nobody can build here. So this island sadly isn't going to work. That's unfortunately often the case, that this is what happens. So let's see what's further north. Okay, so this is a little bit sad. This is a good island, it looks like. As far as I can tell, no caves, nothing like that, but it's in the PvP area. I don't really want to be building my main base in the PvP area, so that doesn't really work. And all of these are the same. So that's unfortunate. We're going to have to look somewhere else. Okay, so I think this is the one that we saw. Let's make sure that this works. And I can see there's another problem. That's a nice big island, but it has a crashed ship on it. But that does not really work all that well either. Okay, then we've got a couple of islands here, but I'm concerned that this might be too close to control point. Let's see. Yeah, just as I thought, there is a control point here, so that's not necessarily going to work either. Unless we can build right at the tip here. No. All PvP, so that doesn't really work either. So this looks like a really hard decision this week. That's it, so I'll go back to the E7 column, I think. And just see what we can find there. Let's just keep going a little bit further east. There's a bigger island down there, but that also has a control point on it, so it's likely that that is not going to work either, and it's really, really far over to the east already. Because the resources are also skewed east, I don't mind too much, but I don't want to be at the very edge of the map. Interesting. I thought there was a control point on here, but it hasn't gone over to PvP just yet. So this might be an option. That's a real relief. We would be in D8. This has got to be it. And I think we're going to be settling here somewhere. So I tried to make sure that it's sort of oriented towards the north as best possible, so that we can just easily go in and out. Not going to fit the island particularly well this time. But yeah, something like this should work. Yeah, that's fine. And then we can go from here. Okay, first things first. Quick hut. Keep that safe. This is really temporary only. I'm building typically a 2x1 hut just to keep the sub-fief safe, put a generator in so that there are base shields, and a little bit of storage. I'll make up a small box and then a larger plastinium box. And really the purpose is just to set us up to throw the building materials in there and then build the actual base in a minute. But this is how I get everything just laid out and started. Everything is safe. Let's just move this in, and when we have that, we'll put a generator down, a small box, and that should really be enough. There we go. Just so that we have everything safe. We can throw the building materials in somewhere, and I'll pick up all of the more advanced materials for the refiners and so on in a moment with my assault. They can go into a bigger plastinium box that's got to here, of space over there. Just put that in for a second. Turn that around the other way. And that is my setup box. Really, I usually do this like a little shipping container, just until we get started on the actual base. And that's how I set up in the deep desert. Thanks for watching. See you next time.